very shy person. I'm a very private person. And so I've never really wanted to put much of my personality into a character. You always get sprinkles of it, like I'll look like my character or dress like my character, but you don't really see a lot of me in the character. And I think that more than any movie I've ever done, like Lily is such a ball buster. I am rotten to the core when it comes to that. Like I am very, like if I'm not busting your balls, then you should be worried. Then I'm mad at you. Then I don't love you.
Hey besties. Welcome back. You won't believe the latest courtroom chaos with Blake Lively in the Wayfair case. If you thought the saga was moving fast, think again. Judge Lewis Lyman just put the brakes on everything, and things are about to get even more intense. Stay with me, because the details here are wild, and you'll want to hear this part about the judge pushing for settlement talks. So here's the scoop. Casey and her dragons are going to have to wait a few months. Why? Because Judge Lyman basically said, I have bigger fish to fry. Between an insane number of motions, sanctions requests, and intervention demands coming from Blake and the Wayfair team, he's got actual trials, criminal cases, that need his attention. Translation, the trial? It's now postponed until May. But that's not all. The judge also made it very clear that he wants both sides to sit down for settlement talks. And from what I've been able to gather, even though there wasn't a live call-in, multiple outlets pieced together that he specifically pointed out the burden on the court system. Basically, all these motions and fights are clogging up the judicial process, and he's not thrilled. Here's the thing. When a federal judge starts talking about the burden on judicial resources, that's legal speak for, this is not the best use of court time. Criminal trials always take priority in federal court, and honestly, civil cases like this one rarely even make it to trial. Over 90% settle before it gets that far. Think about it. Trials mean clerks, attorneys, court staff, jurors, all taking time out of their lives. People who might be working other jobs are suddenly sitting through Blake and Ryan's complaints about, well, some guy calling his wife sexy. Not exactly a world-shaking crime, right? The court has way more serious matters that need attention. But don't get me wrong, the case is messy and super high profile. Neither side is playing nice. Blake keeps throwing out crazy demands, accusing Wayfair of hiding evidence or deleting files, and basically keeping them on edge 24/7. Just yesterday, she filed a letter in response to a motion for sanctions, claiming Wayfair is denying her the evidence she needs to get this proven negative. Yes, you heard that right. She's basically saying, I want proof that something didn't happen, and accusing Wayfair of blocking her. Talk about next-level legal gymnastics. The numbers are staggering. Nearly 200 sealed documents on the public docket, audio, video, everything. On top of that, there are thousands of motions for sanctions, motions for summary judgment, motions for judgment on the pleadings. It's a never-ending pile. And of course, Blake is still fighting over discovery like it's a battle royale. Now, Judge Lyman is basically saying, enough is enough. Go settle this. And honestly, settlement isn't a bad thing. It's part of every case. At some point, both sides have to try it, even if it's just a formal we try to settle, but no dice moment. So, yes, even if Blake says, I won't settle, and Justin says, me neither, the court still needs to check that box before moving forward. This is just the start, besties. Things are heating up, and they can't come soon enough. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your predictions, and of course, subscribe so you're here for every twist in this crazy saga. Alright besties, the courtroom drama continues. Today we're diving into settlement talks, sealed documents, and why Judge Lyman is clearly fed up. Stick around, because some of the details about these filings are absolutely wild. You won't believe what's being hidden from the public eye. So here's the deal. The judge made it clear that both sides have to at least try to settle. Even if Blake or Justin aren't fully on board, there's a process they have to follow, and that means working with a specific magistrate. Now, a magistrate isn't just any judge. They handle smaller cases like arraignments, detentions, or minor misdemeanors. In a case like this, a magistrate's role is to oversee settlement discussions and make lower-level decisions, so Judge Lyman isn't completely buried. And trust me, he's buried. Lyman is juggling thousands of cases, including serious matters like public safety issues in New York's subway system, and even challenges related to Trump's actions in the city. Bottom line, While this case is high profile in the grand scheme of things, it's probably low on his priority list, yet it's consuming a ton of his time, and his clerk's time too. Every motion, intervention, and demand from Blake and Wayfair adds to the chaos. Multiple interventions, constant PR maneuvering, it's exhausting even to read about. You can tell the judge is fed up with the spectacle, which is why he's pushing them toward settlement discussions. Interestingly, Justin's lawyer, Brian Friedman, said that today Justin is hopeful for a peaceful resolution. That's a big shift from a few weeks ago, when the goal was all about vindication at trial. When parties start signaling they're open to settling, it usually means they realize a trial would expose everything to the public, which brings us to the next hot topic. Court today also touched on the mountain of sealed documents. We're talking over 1 million files. Blake and Ryan's team have been filing almost everything under protective orders, even when it's not really confidential, simply because they're high-profile people. Judge Lyman made it clear, federal courts operate under a presumption of public access. If you're filing in a court funded by taxpayers, your documents are supposed to be public, unless there's a strong, legitimate reason to seal them. He stressed that both sides need to really justify why each document stays under wraps. No more filing things under seal, just for privacy or publicity. All right, besties. Things just got even more intense in the Blake, Lively Wayfair saga. Today we're talking sealed documents, public access, and why the judge is finally drawing a hard line. Trust me, some of the rules he laid down are going to shake up this case big time. Judge Lyman made it crystal clear. Federal courts operate under a presumption of public access, and that means documents are supposed to be unsealed unless there's a very good reason otherwise. He told both sides that generic reasons won't cut it. If you want something sealed, you need strong, legally backed arguments. Here's what will still stay sealed: phone numbers, email addresses, home addresses, basically anything that's personally identifying. But beyond that, the court expects transparency, even if the people involved are celebrities like Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, or Taylor Swift. Fame and money don't automatically get you a seal. So yes, Blake's deposition doesn't get to stay hidden forever, and Ryan's texts aren't automatically off limits either. The judge is basically saying, enough with the protective orders being abused. This is where it gets interesting. The case involves AEOs, attorney's eyes only designations, which are supposed to protect sensitive info. But in practice, they're being heavily abused. Blake's team is filing almost everything under seal, often without a strong legal reason, which is creating huge burdens for the court. Meanwhile, Wayfair isn't playing those games. They're putting their evidence out there: Justin's deposition, text messages, Jamie's deposition, Steve's testimony, everything relevant that supports their defense. They're transparent. But Blake, she's only showing her side when it benefits her and keeping everything else hidden. That leaves the public seeing only part of a story, which isn't fair and adds to the judge's frustration. Judge Lyman also reminded them that trial sealing is extremely rare. To keep anything sealed during trial, they'd need to meet a very high legal standard. So if this case does go to trial, expect most documents to be unsealed. When you combine his stance on unsealing documents with his push to go through a magistrate for settlement talks, it's clear what he's saying: this doesn't belong in his courtroom. Right now, the constant filings and demands are wasting everyone's time: the judges, the clerks, the courts, and even the party's own resources. Every single motion, letter, and request filed is adding expenses and burdening the system. And Blake is going to have a come-to-Jesus moment sooner or later, realizing that she can't just rely on fame to protect her side of the story. Being a celebrity doesn't mean you get special treatment. Sure, some high-profile trials make headlines. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard is the obvious example, but in this case, the trial wouldn't even be televised. The court isn't here for theatrics. It's here for justice and efficiency. Blake and Justin are going to have to face the reality that the system doesn't bend for star power, and the judge's instructions are making that very clear. Besties, the drama just keeps escalating. Today we're diving into what could happen if Blake and Ryan's case goes to trial, why settlement is starting to look way more appealing, and the jaw-dropping details about their famous friends and sealed documents. Stick around. You won't believe what's already on the docket. Here's the thing. Even if a trial happened, there wouldn't be any audio released, but everything would still be part of the public record. So the real question is, do Blake and Ryan actually want that? For outsiders, it might seem obvious. Yes, let it all out. But for the people in the hot seat, it's a completely different story. Having to give up evidence and see it exposed publicly creates huge pressure to settle before it goes that far. Once something hits the public domain, there's no taking it back. And we're talking about more than just minor details here. Finances, earnings, the economic picture of Blake, even questions about her marriage could come up. Imagine Blake on the stand, being cross-examined about personal matters, and then throw in Ryan's involvement. That's a narrative they definitely don't want out there. Right now, Ryan may not be ready to settle, but eventually, the risk of exposure will push them toward a resolution. It's just human nature. No one wants personal, financial, or sensitive private details splashed all over the public record. This pressure isn't just legal, it's social too. Famous friends like Taylor Swift, Hugh Jackman, and Sean Levy could be dragged into the public eye, their text messages and interactions scrutinized. And yes, Taylor Swift's texts are already part of the docket, though most are still sealed. Unredacted Taylor Swift's name, but carefully remove the context that made her look bad. Basically, she's using the influence of her famous friends to protect herself and control the narrative, while keeping the damaging parts hidden from the public. Here's one example. On February 22, 2024, Blake told Sony she wouldn't promote her film unless she could participate in the edit. Weeks later, the court filings show her allegedly influencing famous friends and disparaging the film's director, Bellin. She even pushed to remove credits from the film entirely. When responding, Blake acknowledged some exhibits but redacted the context, like her disparaging Bellin or coordinating with friends. She basically tried to argue that her actions weren't supported by evidence, while still keeping key details out of public view. All of this points to a bigger picture. Going to trial would expose a lot of sensitive details, and the judge clearly wants both sides to think twice before wasting court time. Settlement becomes much more appealing when you consider the risk to their personal lives, finances, and social circle. It's not just about legal strategy, this is risk management at a celebrity level. Every document, every text, every deposition that hits the docket adds pressure to resolve the case outside the courtroom. Besties, buckle up. Today's update on the Blake Lively Wayfair case is explosive. We're talking redacted documents, Taylor Swift's involvement, and why the judge is now pushing hard for settlement. You won't want to miss this. Stick around, because the details here are wild. So, here's what happened. Blake decided to unredact certain exhibits, like texts she sent to her team and to Taylor Swift about the film trailer. But even though she's revealing some things, she's still fighting to keep other items sealed, including messages that show her collaborating with Taylor Swift on the trailer edits. Now, Wayfair's exhibits show these texts, but they don't prove that Blake made extensive edits herself. Essentially, she's revealing just enough to appear cooperative while concealing the full picture. Here's where it gets interesting. Blake also disparaged the film's director, Bellin, to her Hollywood friends. She doesn't dispute it in court, but she's redacted it in her filings, hiding it from the public. So, while the documents admit what she did, she's controlling the narrative by keeping key context secret. She's basically saying, yes, I did these things, but no one gets to see how or why. And it's not just minor stuff. This is about trying to take over a film, collaborating with famous friends, and discrediting the director publicly. Taylor Swift's involvement is huge here. Blake sent her the trailer before it was released, asking for feedback. This wasn't about music rights. It was about editing decisions. By showing this collaboration, it's clear Taylor had influence over the trailer and possibly other elements of the film. Blake is protecting both herself and Taylor by keeping these details redacted, but the court is starting to see through it. This shows that going to trial would expose a lot more than she wants. Here's the takeaway. Blake wants the benefits of controlling the narrative, the PR wins, the creative influence, the public perception, without taking responsibility for her actions. The judge sees this and is pushing both sides toward mediation, making it clear that this case is wasting court resources. Settlement is looking increasingly likely because going to trial would reveal everything publicly, including redacted text messages and collaborations. The judge doesn't want to deal with summary judgment motions or other legal battles. Blake and Justin would rather avoid personal, financial, and reputational exposure. Basically, settlement allows the court to close the case without expending more time or resources, while giving Blake a chance to manage what becomes public. So, besties, the bottom line is, trial seems unlikely. Blake isn't fully transparent, Taylor Swift's involvement is being protected, and the judge is clearly fed up with the endless filings and redactions. Settlement talks are the path forward, and the court is making that clear. What do you think about Taylor Swift's role in the edits? Do you think Blake will ever fully admit what she did, or is this all about controlling the narrative? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you're hooked, and subscribe so you never miss updates on this high-profile courtroom saga. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.